This is World News This Evening with Jay Johnson.
All right, I'm Jay Johnson. We're here at WVON Taste of Chicago. It's the Taste of WVON. This young man here is running for governor of the state of Illinois.
Yes, sir.
Representing Chirac. Chirac is renewing a culture. What we're doing is trying to get African Americans to come together. As you well know, black people cannot fly their own flag. It's a riot. If your country flies a flag, it's okay. If Chinese fly a flag, it's okay. What we want to do is bring black people together, because we don't need anything but each other. If we concentrate on supporting each other, we wouldn't need anything. So you're going to be running for governor. Tell us, what can you do to help renew this culture that you know is torn apart, particularly why they call it Chirac, all the gun violence?
We got to build prosperity right here in the community by people who live in the community for people who live here in the community. So how are we going to do that? There's all kinds of creativity, as you know, and entrepreneurship that exists all across these streets and these blocks. And problem people have is there's no capital available to start a business. Lots of good ideas, but you can't go to a bank and borrow money anymore, right? And there's no one who's going to give you any money to do it. I think the state of Illinois ought to have a small business loan fund and a micro loan fund for people in the community, the money being targeted in the community. People in the community want to start a business, because you know what? If you start a business in the community, you're going to hire people right here in the community. You're going to build it, and their next location of that business is going to be a couple of blocks away, maybe 10 blocks away, more jobs in the community. And here's the big kicker. You own the business, you get the profits, and the profits stay in the community. So I think prosperity is what we've got to focus on. Now, we obviously need education, job training, and making sure kids who graduate from high school have vocational training if they choose not to go to college. And if they want to go to college, they ought to be able to, we ought to make it affordable for them to go to college. But I'm just saying, if we can keep the dollars that are in the community here and owned in the community, I think that'll do an awful lot.
So how long have you been in Chicago, in Illinois?
Well, my parents are born and raised here. They moved to start a business, a motel, started with a motel and built into a successful hotel business. And so I was born there, and then I moved back here. So about almost 28 years I've been here in Chicago.
So what is your compassion about the situation in Chicago, particularly as I am dealing with the African American? Because if that happens, then I think that'll show a bit of unification among all other races.
So just so you know a little bit of my background, I've worked really hard to create preschool and child care all across black and brown communities here in Illinois. Second, there are more than 55,000 kids that got school breakfast all across the state every single school day. They still get it through a program that President Obama put in place called No Kid Hungry, but I helped to spread that across the state. So now 230,000 kids, and they're particularly here in black and brown communities, low-income communities across the state. So those are two things. I also ran the Illinois Human Rights Commission, which is the state's civil rights court. So when people get discriminated against in their job, they got a place to go to get justice. And finally, I endowed the Center on Wrongful Convictions, and that's the organization that when you read about somebody who got falsely imprisoned, because they didn't do it, but they got convicted of it, it's usually the organization that gets them out that's in the headline. You know, when the person gets out and people are outraged that they spent 10 years in prison, right. It's the organization Center on Wrongful Convictions often that was the one that helped them do that, and I endowed that program. It's very important to me that we stand up for civil rights and criminal justice reform, because it's just wrong that our kids get incarcerated when they're juveniles and then they got this record and it sticks with you your whole life. So we got to have the automatic expungement for kids, and then we got to make sure that we employ people, you know, who've been convicted of anything, right? Because that's how you keep them out of prison. But like I said, the most important thing is we got to build prosperity here in the community. I mean, I really believe that there's a lot of issues that affect the black and brown communities all across the state of Illinois. But the biggest one is there's not enough prosperity, there's not enough wealth being built right here in the community, and that's something I really want to change.
So if we elect you governor,
yes, sir,
what can we expect? Some of the same that you've been doing, or can we do anything about what the current situation, the things that are ravishing our neighborhoods with economics? We're talking about money. There's no, they're taking away the housing. Their gentrification is going on. I mean, what do we do?
Well, the first thing we got to do is make sure we prioritize those things in the state government. In other words, we got to raise the money that it takes to run a government, which the government isn't doing today. I think we need a progressive income tax, and that means somebody like me pays a higher rate than somebody someone who's middle class or trying to get into the middle class. So someone making $20,000 shouldn't pay the same rate of tax that I pay. I should pay a much higher rate. So that's the first thing. We got to pay for the education that we want for our kids. We got to pay for the health care that we want to expand and make sure everybody gets. We got to fight Donald Trump, make sure he doesn't take it away, by the way.
I love your spirit. I am going to encourage people. I'm going to find out more about what you do. I'm going to come and talk to your people. I want to find out what you've done outside of what you said.
Okay.
We need somebody in a governmental position who can do something, and we need to get political about it. And I like what you've said so far, and if it continues to go as it has been, what you've said, we got your back here at Chirac. We got your back at Chicago Communicator. Do the job you say what you do, and we will back you.
So the way you ought to make a judgment call, anybody that's watching this and you, about who you ought to vote for governor, is look at what they were doing when they weren't running for office, right? Not when they decided to run for office. What were they doing back when they didn't think they were running, right? Absolutely. And the things that I've been engaged in, creating jobs, fighting for civil rights, standing up for our youngest and most at-risk kids. Those are things I was doing long before I ever decided to run for governor. That's how you ought to make a decision about people, not what they say they're going to do, because frankly, anybody can say anything they want when they're running, and you know they make promises and then don't deliver. I've been delivering my whole life. That's how you know I'll deliver when I get elected.
Well, let's deliver something right now. This is an old school thing. You say you're going to do what you say you're going to do?
Yes, sir.
We're going to shake on it.
Okay, I got
We're going to shake on this man saying that he's become government of the state of Illinois, then he will do what he says. He got my hand in his hand.
There you go.
Now, if you don't do it, we're going to have to check him.
I got it.
As long as you do it, we got your back.
I promise you.
I'm Jay Johnson, WVON, in Chicago right now. This is what is going on, and this is what we need. We need political representation, and we want you to do it, and we are behind you 100% as long as you keep your word.
This is World News This Evening with Jay Johnson.